Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to How to Train Your Gavin. Today I'm going to go through my top 20 middle grade books of 2021.
How many middle grades did I read? That is a cool question.
In the year of 2021, I read a total of 148 middle grade books as of filming this video. 148! That's a lot. So it was really hard to narrow it down to my top 20. So whatever made this top 20 list is honestly the creme de la creme of 2021. And I love all of these books with everything I have. All of them got 5 stars. And there are some that didn't make the top 20 that also got 5 stars. But yeah, I just wanted to limit it down to 20. I did do a top 50 middle grade books of all time video last month, so if you want to check that out, please do so. Some of the books in this list do make that list as well, so that's quite interesting. 2021 did have some fantastic middle grade releases. And not just that, but I did manage to get to some backlog middle grade books this year as well. Could not have done this without my homemade caramel iced latte.
6 p.m. as well. I'm not getting to sleep tonight.
So there are actually 4 books that came out this year that are literally my favourite books. But I read them at the end of 2020. So they were included in my top 50 middle grades of 2020 video, which I will also link down below. But those books I will just briefly mention right now, just in case you're wondering why they didn't make my list. But the books that made last year's best books of 2020 video: Amari and the Night Brothers by Baby Alston, Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean, A Tangle of Spells by Michelle Harrison, The Usual Travel Agency, The Edge of the Ocean by L.D. Lipinski, and The Hatmakers by Tamsin Merchant. These books all made my top 50 middle grades of 2020 video, so they will not be mentioned in this video even though they came out in 2021. I just wanted to mention them because I love them so much. Anyway, without further ado, I'll get into my top 20. Shadowgast by Thomas Taylor. This one is the third book in the Eerie on Sea mystery series by Thomas Taylor, the first book being Malamanta, the second book being Gargantus, and Shadowgast the third, and it was so atmospheric, so great and whimsical. The Eerie on Sea series follows Herbie Lemon, who works at the Grand Nautilus Hotel. He is a lost and finder, so he can find lost things. One day, Violet Palmer crashes into the hotel, and she is lost herself. She doesn't know where her parents are, so Herbie has to help her. And each book has had a kind of different storyline to it, and this one is set on the eve of Ghastly Night, which is Eerie on Sea's Halloween. There is a strange stage magician that comes to Eerie on Sea and has some answers, as well as more questions for Herbie Lemon and what happened to his own family, his past that even he doesn't know about, and so much more. The atmosphere in this is like the best of the series so far. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. So that is in 20 place on my top 20 middle grades of 2021. Probably should have done my top 21 middle grades of 2021. To be fair, I've coupled multiple books as one book in this video, so there are actually more than 20 books mentioned. In at number 19 is What Lives in the Woods by Lindsay Curry. This one was a very spooky middle grade book that I loved just as much as Scritch Scratch, which is Lindsay Curry's previous scary middle grade story. This one follows Ginny and her family who go to Woodmore Manor, which is like in the middle of the woods. It's very run down, it's very spooky. Strange things happen inside the manor as well, and loads of spooky, scary stuff happens. It's probably like the barest way of describing this book, but I read this in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. It was so fast-paced and spooky. If you're looking for a good spooky middle grade, Lindsay Curry is the one to go to. In at number 18 is Dragon City by Katie and Kevin Sang. This is the third book in the Dragon Realm series. Love this book so much. I'm going to say this about every single book, but I loved it. It's the best one in the Dragon Realm series so far. We have 4 kids who bond with dragons, these legendary dragons, and gives them powers. There is this huge story arc which has been running since the very first book, and every single book prior to this had such a big cliffhanger, so my excitement for this book was through the roof. It did not disappoint. This was at times heartbreaking, exciting, so adventurous, so magical, great, amazing, loved it, 10 out of 10, would recommend. I'm also realizing I'm not really talking too much about these books, whereas last year the video was over an hour long. And it was 50 books long as well, to be fair. In at number 17 is Secrets of the Stars by Maria Kuznia, and this is the sequel to The Ship of Shadows. The Ship of Shadows follows Alea, who comes across the legendary Ship of Shadows, which is like this magical ship that is run only by women, and these women are pirates, and they go on this adventure. They're trying to find map pieces that, when put together, it will reveal hidden locations. And in this one, just so much happens. There is still a couple of lines that really stand out to me, and so many moments and shocking things that happen that literally had me floored. So adventurous, and it gave me all of those Pirates of the Caribbean feels that I have been missing in my books. I loved the first Ship of Shadows so much. This was a fantastic follow-up to it. Did not disappoint with the adventure, with the settings as well, because this goes different places and it's just non-stop, and I think a lot of people would really, really enjoy this book, this series, and I really hope there's going to be a third one. And in number 16 is One Day at Horrorland by R.L. Stine. This one is a great Goosebumps book, and it's not very often I can say that about Goosebumps book. Now, I love the Goosebumps books as a kid, reread them all as an adult, and I didn't enjoy the majority. However, there were 3 that stood out, and 2 more will come up on this list, but One Day at Horrorland is one of them. One Day at Horrorland follows the Morris family, and they come across a theme park that is run by monsters, and each ride is very creepy and very sinister, and different things happen to the Morris family. They kind of get a little bit separated. It starts off with a car explosion that strands the Morris family at this theme park. It is so good. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of how it wrapped up and all of that, but now I have to give some leeway to some Goosebumps books because, you know, you win some, you lose some. But this one was genuinely fantastic and one of my favourite Goosebumps books of all time. In a joint 15th, because I'm terrible, is Eva Evergreen Semi-Magical Witch and Eva Evergreen and the Cursed Witch by Julie Abbey. And this is a joint thing because I tried talking about sequels before the first book in my top 50 middle grades of all time video, and I struggled. To do it. So I've decided to put some sequels together if I read them both this year, and I loved both of them. So I've done this with Eva Evergreen. It will happen again in this list, by the way, just letting you know. But Eva Evergreen follows Eva, who is, as the name suggests, a semi-magical witch. She is not the best of witches. She falls asleep during spells. She makes bad potions, things like that. But she really wants to be better. And one way of getting better is to train up. And she goes to another town. In order to do that, she starts a repair shop. Yeah, it's Kiki's Delivery Service, but in book form. Although saying that though, Kiki's Delivery Service is originally a book by Eiko Kodono, which I really enjoyed. But this series does end up becoming its own by the second book. It had such a strong plot, a really exciting plot as well. I did not know what was going to happen next, and it went from being like so cute and wholesome to being a little bit, you know, fast-paced and action-packed in this one. So, you know, 2 contrasting books, which I really appreciate, and it was so fun, so magical. And again, if you want the Kiki's Delivery Service vibes, then look no further than Eva Evergreen. And in number 14 is Murder on the Safari Star by M.J. Leonard and Sam Sedgman. This is the 4th book in the Adventures on Trains series, which follows Hal and his uncle Nat, and they solve crimes on trains. Each book has been set in a different place. This one is set in South Africa, which is a place I've visited. It's a place I love, and I could really see it through the descriptions in this book. We have a murder on the Safari Star, and it's the most dangerous adventure yet, and I loved every second of it. I did not expect how things happened in this book. I wasn't sure of the culprit, and I wasn't sure how they managed to do it, and it was so fun to work it out. It was so fun to follow along Hal and Uncle Nat on their journey to working it out, and it just felt more dangerous. The setting was so alive, and definitely I think my favourite Adventures on Trains book so far. Just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I cannot sing the praises of M.J. Leonard and Sam Sedgman enough, quite honestly. They have created such a fantastic book, and the illustrations by Eliza Pecanelli as well really do help to bring this story to life. So yeah, my favourite one so far in the series, and wholeheartedly recommend. And in number 13 is A Night in Terror Tower by R.L. Stine, another Goosebumps book, and my second favourite Goosebumps book. Now this follows Eddie and Sue, and they are on holiday from America in London, and they go to visit the Tower of London, and they are ended up stalked by an executioner. They end up getting blasted into the past. So much happens in this book, and honestly it's probably one of the more exciting and plot heavy Goosebumps books. A lot of the things I was annoyed about in Goosebumps books was not present in this one. For examples, we have such supportive characters. They're not constantly trying to scare each other, and you know, it was a great sibling dynamic, and just so exciting from start to finish. And while the ending again wasn't the best, I still enjoyed my time with this, and it didn't let up. It was just so exciting all the way through. Next up is Night Books by J.A. White. I have been obsessed with the Netflix film as soon as it came out. I've watched it twice now. I really, really enjoy it. Kristen Ritter is an actual goddess. I love her in that role. And I really like the book. It follows Alex, who is running away from home, and he comes across this apartment that belongs to a witch, and she won't let him go, and he has to read scary stories that he's created himself every night. He also meets Yasmin, and Yasmin is another prisoner from this witch called Natasha, and I just absolutely adore the story. It's so unique, so unlike a lot of things that I've read, and it was a little bit, not exactly spooky, but some of the stories that Alex came up with were a little spooky, and of course, you know, being kidnapped by a witch and not being let go is a terrifying thought, but it was just so fun, and I loved the movie as well, so that's why I wanted to read this one, and it's more of a recent read, so it didn't make my top 50 middle grades of all time, but I read this after that video, and I would definitely include this in my top 50 middle grades of all time. Another very recent read for me, and literally a couple of days ago, is Arusha and the City of Gold by Roshni Chokshi. I love the Pandava Quintet series, and I cannot wait for the final book. It's going to tear my heart in two. But I read Arusha 4 for the Goodreads Choice Awards 2021, which is a video I will link. I just recently did that, completed that. It should be up by the time this video goes up. So I have more thoughts on it on that video. But it's so fantastic. It is better than the previous 3 books, which I still am amazed by because each one has been better than the last. But the Arusha Pandava Quintet series follows Aru, and she accidentally awakens a sleeper demon in the first book, and she has to try and stop it. It has Hindu mythology woven into it, and it's just a great adventure series. And if you are a huge fan of Percy Jackson, Rick Riordan, all of that, then this series is honestly perfect for you. This is like the spiritual successor of that. It's just fantastic, and Aru is like one of my favorite middle grade characters. She's just so funny, and in this book, in City of Gold, she just takes it to the next level, and there are so many exciting things that happened that is in consequence to decisions she made in the first 3 books, so it was really nice to see the threads of that and how it's building up to a finale, and I just can't wait to see what happens next, quite honestly. It's just so exciting. In number 10 is Pages and Co. The Book Smugglers by Anna James. I adore this book, just like I did the first 3. This is another one where, oh my gosh, like Arusha is like the 4th book in the series, better than the previous ones. In this one, we kind of have a bit of a split narrative. We follow Milo, who is a character introduced in book 3, as well as Tilly, who is the main character from the first 3 books. This kind of starts like a new arc. And this one is more predominantly about Milo though, but Tilly's grandfather and Milo's guardian end up getting poisoned copies of The Wizard of Oz, and they fall asleep. So Tilly and Milo have to figure out what's going on, and we have the hallmark whimsical book wandering that we come to know and love from the first 3 books, and Wizard of Oz is one of my favourite stories of all time, one of my favourite movies of all time. It's just so great to see Dorothy and Co come to life in this one. But also the whole plot of this with the alchemist and the botanist is so engrossing. Like, this stands on its own feet even without the adventures through, you know, Railway Children, Wizard of Oz. It holds its own, and I love it with everything I have. In number 9 is The Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine. This was always my favourite Goosebumps book, even as a kid, and now just even more so. Upon a reread as an adult, it still holds up today. It still has the very terrifying concept of how the face mask won't come off when you put it on, and that's terrifying. It scared me as a kid, it scares me as an adult. But we follow Carly Beth, who is badly bullied, and she wants to get her own back on her bullies by getting the creepiest Halloween mask she can find. However, the one that she does find ends up sticking to her face, and it will not come off. Starts to change her personality, and it is so good. Yeah, we actually have a really decent protagonist and a great story, honestly, and it had a great ending as well. It had a great message. It just, the best Goosebumps book ever, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. In number 8 is Juliet and the Shark by Kieran Mulwood-Hargrave and Tom DeFreston. Tom DeFreston did the illustrations in this, and honestly, if I could open it up, I can't really open it. Oh, I'll just take it off. It has like some of the best illustrations inside it. Like, it's just so artful. Like, this page here is like a tracing paper thing. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But Julia and the Shark follows Julia, who accompanies her parents to a lighthouse. Her mother is after, or at least looking for, this elusive shark, and it's a delve into mental health and kind of how it affects the family and how it affects Julia. And it's such a beautiful metaphorical story, and I just bawled reading this. It was so impactful, so emotional, and so important, I think. I think this is really important for a lot of people to read, and it really helps you confront your emotions. It had a great story as well. Like, honestly, the story behind it is also very impactful. The illustrations just make the story as well as the story makes the illustrations. It just goes hand in hand with each other. One of the best middle grade books I've ever read, and I honestly adore this with everything. Everything I have, I adore it. Even if you're not a big contemporary reader, I still think you should give this one a try, because It's just perfect. Absolutely perfect. In at number 7 is Show Us Who You Are by Elle McNichol. This one is Elle McNichol's foray into sci-fi. But in this one we have the Pomegranate Institute. And the Pomegranate Institute make holograms of people, whether alive or dead. And you can converse with them, you can interact with them. And we follow Cora, who is kind of sucked into the world of the Pomegranate Institute. She meets Aiden, whose brother is kind of part of Pomegranate Institute. And we have this dilemma for Cora. Like, does she agree with Pomegranate? Are things a bit more sinister than she realized? It's a fantastic, fantastic book. It has fantastic autistic representation, fantastic ADHD representation. In chapter 13, okay? I have to spit my tongue. Chapter 13, that's all I'm saying. Fantastic book, honestly, and it has those great sci-fi elements to it with the contemporary that you come to know and love from Elle McNichol's previous book, A Kind of Spark. So I wholly recommend this, always. I always recommend Elle McNichol's books, they're the best. Okay, in at number 6 is 2 books in 1 again, but that is Front Desk and 3 Keys by Kelly Yang. I read these earlier in the year, absolutely love them. They follow Mia and her family who immigrate from China to America, and they begin to run their own motel. They face so much adversity. Mia, honestly, one of the best protagonists in middle grade, which I've mentioned a couple of times in this video. But honestly, the middle grade characters in 2021 leaped from the page. Front Desk, I know came out a few years ago, so this is a bit of an older one, but it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I was so engrossed in Mia's story and how she used her voice and how she overcame so much adversity. In 3 Keys as well, just it continued that story. I was still so engrossed. It had so much going on. Looking forward to Room to Dream, which is coming out in January in the UK. That one's going to be fantastic as well. I just know it. And yeah, I honestly love the series so much. And number 5 is Rainbow Grey by Laura Ellen Anderson. This one follows Ray, who lives in the Weatherlands, and pretty much everyone has weather magic. Ray doesn't, and she ends up taking a forbidden expedition to Earth, and she ends up getting rainbow magic, which is a power that is very rare. In fact, it hasn't been seen in such a long time. And she is transformed into Rainbow Grey. And there are villains in this. There is a plot. And it will continue into another book. And I'm so excited. Honestly, this book was just phenomenal. If you read Amelia Fang by Laura Ellen Anderson, you will kind of get the same kind of humour, the same kind of heartfelt story. And the illustrations are just incredible, fantastic, love it. I do feature in this book as Gusty Gavin. And I absolutely love that character so much, honestly. Oh, this is the first book I've ever been a character in, and I just still can't get over that to this day. Oh, it makes me so happy. But even then, like, the story itself speaks for itself. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So exciting. So many different things happen. So humorous. And I think you would love it. Even though this is like on the younger side of middle grade, why wouldn't you want to read this? This is a warm hug after the year we've had. This is a warm hug. This is just what you need. This is a remedy, okay? And yeah, I just love it with everything I have. So love it. In at number 4 is King in the Dragonflies by Kaysen Calendar. I think this one also came out a couple of years ago, but I was a bit late to reading it. Absolutely adored it. This one follows King, who has lost his brother Khalid, and he believes his brother has been turned into a dragonfly. King is also dealing with his sexuality, as well as his friend who has come out as gay, and how all of this impacts King and what his brother thinks of King. I'm probably doing a really bad job at summarizing this book, but honestly, I loved it. I loved it so much. I read it so quickly because I didn't want to put it down. In fact, this might be my favourite contemporary of all time. And it's such a testament to this book because fantasy is my go-to genre. Fantasy is my favourite genre. So when a contemporary can really surprise me the way this did, it's a huge testament to the book. So love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And at number 3 are 3 books. Okay, it's kind of a little bit hard to hold because they're so slippery, but that is the Edge Chronicles, the Twig Saga. So I started rereading the Edge Chronicles this year. I only made it through the first 2 sagas, the Quint Saga and the Twig Saga, and I do want to continue on with them because this was my favourite series as a child. Beyond the Deep Woods, on a reread, it broke me. It made me. I loved it so much. And it just reminded me of all of the nostalgia and all of the amazingness that I felt when I first read this. The Edge Chronicles is a massive series. There are loads of different sagas in it. But yeah, the Twig Saga, the entire Twig Saga, I put in my top 20 because I love and adore the Twig Saga so much. So Beyond the Deep Woods then follows Twig. Twig was abandoned at birth in the Deep Woods and was taken in by wood trolls. So he's been growing up with wood trolls, but he is human. When he's older, Twig doesn't fit in, so he wants to find out who he is, and he sets off in the Deep Woods to find out where he belongs. However, the wood troll's motto is do not stray from the path. However, Twig does that. And he comes across so many different creatures, so many different characters. This is so dangerous. Honestly, one of the most mortifying moments ever happens in Beyond the Deep Woods that I totally forgot. But when I reread it, I was like, oh my god, this scarred me as a child. And it's scarring me again as an adult. There's also something that happens in Storm Chaser that is quite horrifying as well. Like, this is a pretty dark middle grade series. Like, there are dark moments. There is some violence. I've said before that it's kind of like Game of Thrones, but for kids, in a way. Like, not really, but kind of. The Quint Saga, I guess, is probably a bit more on that side than the Twig Saga. The Twig Saga is more focused on the adventure, and I love it so much. I love it. Storm Chaser, the second book of the Twig Saga, was also fantastic, as well as Midnight Over Sanctifrax. Midnight Over Sanctifrax was a fantastic conclusion to this little trilogy, so I would always recommend this series. I love it so much. And in number 2 is Root Magic by Eden Royce. I think I've mentioned this book so many times on my channel. I love it so much. This one is set in South Carolina in 1963, and we follow Jez and Jay. Their family practices root magic, which has been passed down through their family. However, there are supernatural forces at play in this. There is also some real life atrocities that happen as well, and they have to deal with racism, they have to deal with the supernatural threats, and it just all works and blends so incredibly well. Eden Royce has literally leaped into being one of my favorite authors, even though she only has one middle grade book out so far. Oh, the way she described things, the marshes, the swamps, the settings, everything was just incredible. And yeah, I just freaking love this one. Which brings me to my number 1 pick, which will again not surprise a single person, and that is Frostheart Rise of the World Eater by Jamie Littler, the third and final book in the Frostheart series. Frostheart follows Ash, who has these secret magical powers, forbidden magical powers, where he is able to communicate with Leviathans, which are monsters that live in the Snow Sea. One day, Ash saves the crew of the Frostheart by unleashing his powers, and he is kicked from his home. So he joins the crew of the Frostheart along with his Yeti guardian Tobu, and makes friends with Luna, who is one of my favourite characters, and he sets off on an adventure to find his missing parents, but also to navigate this very dangerous world. The third book made me cry, like literally physically cry. I haven't cried at a book in so long, and I physically cried. I have a reading vlog for this book if you want to know my in-depth thoughts and to see me cry, then do check that vlog out. But honestly, this just tore me apart. It was the best way to end the series, but also heartbreaking, and it was just so beautifully done, so incredibly well written, and the illustrations by Jamie Littler are gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Action-packed, one of the most exciting series I've ever read, either middle grade, young adult, or adult, just of anything. Exciting, non-stop, action, non-stop, fantastic story, non-stop. Just all of it. All of it was amazing, perfect. I'm so happy with how this turned out. I was so anticipating this book for such a long time. It didn't disappoint. Not one bit. In fact, this has a perfect 10 out of 10 on Compile. And do you know how hard it is to get a perfect 10 out of 10 on Compile? Brilliant, amazing, my favourite middle grade book of all time now. And probably my favourite book of all time too. So please give the Frostheart series a try. This might end up being the last time I push this book on you because, you know, there's no new books coming out soon. I've done my top middle grades of all time video. I'm doing my top middle grades of 2021 video. So I don't know when the next time I'll mention Frostheart is, but please, this is my final play. Please read the series. It is my favourite. I love it so much. So there we have it. That was my top 20 middle grades of 2021, although there were a couple more kind of slotted in there. And I hope you got some really good recommendations from that. I hope you will enjoy these books if you give them a try. But please do let me know in the comments what your favourite middle grade books of 2021 were. Do you have any standout favourites? Do our tastes align? Let me know. I would love to talk middle grade with you all in the comments. But don't forget to give this video a like as well if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate you watching my video. Thank you so much, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye.